Blog Talk Radio.
Hello and welcome to Around the Nest. I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler, and over the course of this week's show, we'll speak with the voices of the Blue Jays organization. We'll speak with Ben Wagner in AAA Buffalo. We'll also speak with Tom Gauthier, the voice of the AA New Hampshire Fisher Cats. Tyler Murray will join us. Tyler is the voice of Dunedin, the Blue Jays in the Florida State League. And meanwhile, Trey Wilson will join us to speak about the Lansing Lugnuts in the Midwest League for Toronto. So we'll go all the way up and down the ladder, and it'll be a lot of fun. We do this every single week. You can find us online at aroundthenest.mlblogs, MLBLOGS.com. We'd love to update you with all that's going on in the entire system. And we begin this week with Ben Wagner in AAA, the voice of the Bisons. Ben, it seems to me that it's natural to start off with, my goodness, how good was Kyle Drabek?
He was as good as I've ever seen him, and that's a handful of starts from 2013 to what we've seen taking the ball every fifth day here in Buffalo. This was by far and away not only really a launching point, I think, for the rest of the season for Kyle, but it was also, I think, perhaps even the turning point of the season for Kyle. He had been bitten by some long ball trouble earlier, control problems, but he located the fastball very well. Off-speed stuff was working great, and he was as good as any pitcher at this level has been all season long through his first 8 innings of work yesterday.
That's very impressive, and it's especially good to see because for all those folks who've been following his career, especially after the Blue Jays acquired him, so much has been expected, and now once he had to rehab from the reconstructive surgery, trying to figure out would he have the same talent, when would he put it all together, and then there's yesterday, in the midst of a Buffalo Bisons team that Bisons have been very good, they're in first place, but Liam Hendriks has been trying to carry a lot of the load for the starting pitching, and now Hendriks is going up to the major leagues for an audition, it sounds like. Tell me about Liam.
Well, Liam is a strike thrower, and that's what's been most impressive is the fact that he throws the ball over the plate. He's never been afraid of contact, and watching him over the last 3 years with Rochester, knowing what kind of pitcher he is, he's even better this season with Buffalo, and that's why he warranted the promotion. A 5-0 record, a sub-2 ERA, actually sub-1.5 ERA, 1.48. But also, he's missing barrels. And when the opposition, for a guy that isn't afraid of contact, is going to throw the ball over the plate, has the opponent hitting just 202 against him, that means he's spotting his pitches very well and he's throwing everything for strikes. And 70% of his pitches this season have been in the strike zone, which is just incredible. Most pitchers would do cartwheels if it's 60%. And we may even talk Randy St. Clair with doing handstands with Munenori Kawasaki. The pitching coach with Buffalo can team up for his pregame regimen with Mooney, with the way that Hendriks has had so much success this season. And I also credit, the Blue Jays a little bit, too, for going out, having somebody that is in terms of player development there, dominating, and when an opportunity arose, they just didn't find somebody that's a stopgap. Spot start like they could have done with Todd Redmond. Obviously, Esmail Rogers is a roster move to get him on the active 25-man roster, but he would have been an option as well. And over the last couple of days, it boiled down to one of those two guys. It would have been very easy to stick with the 25 that they had, especially on the heels of Burley going so deep like he did last night. The bullpen wasn't taxed. But here's a reward for a veteran guy that was working his butt off at AAA, deserved an opportunity, and now gets it. And now it's up to him, in Liam's case, to figure out if he's going to stick.
Joined by Ben Wagner with the Buffalo Bisons, AAA affiliate of the Toronto Blue Jays. The Blue Jays are in first place right now. Any Jays fans, wherever they might be, whether north of the border or elsewhere, have to be very enthused with how things are going on in the AL East with this recent surge. And there's Liam Hendriks getting injected right into the middle of things. He's been up in the major leagues before, 2011 through 2013 with the Twins. But did you have the opportunity to speak with him after he got called up?
And not after, because he was away from the ball club sitting in limbo when he was back in Buffalo. And the Bisons had an off day on Wednesday when really Alex Anthopoulos added a little fuel to the fire, saying it's going to be one of two guys, being either Liam or being Todd Redmond. And then the Bisons flew out of Buffalo on Thursday morning to begin their series last night. here in Louisville, so it was a long day, but no one-on-one communication after officially receiving word. And from what I understand, he did not know 100% until yesterday afternoon with an early start, and then obviously with Burley going as deep as he did with that 4:05 start time in Boston. So it was a decision down to the minute, but I did not get the reaction from Liam, but Liam's pretty mellow. I'm going to guess that he didn't get too high and didn't get too low about either opportunity. But, of course, I know him, and he is going to be excited about this opportunity. I think he's going to go out and try to do exactly what he's been able to do with the Bisons this year, not try to do anything different.
Speaking of that movement between Buffalo and Toronto, so Marcus Stroman had the opportunity to dip his foot into the water at the big league level, pitch out of the bullpen. It comes right back to Buffalo, and I tuned into your broadcast to hear how things went, and it sounded like he didn't miss a beat at all. There was one rough inning, but aside from that, the same Stroman that you had gotten used to seeing.
Yeah, unfortunately, the rough inning was with one swing of the bat, and it wasn't the worst pitch that he threw all day. By his own admission, he was living a little bit too high in the zone, and that's something that Gary Allenson recognized very early in our in-game interview with him as well. But the pitch that got hit for the 3-run homer, and it proved to be the game winner, that was the pitch that was actually about knee-high. Just a big, strong man jacked it out of the yard. And tip your hat to the hitter in that perspective, because the pitches that he got away with, he still was able to induce some outs, more fly ball outs than what he has in his last couple of starts with the Buffalo Bisons. But you know what? The velocity is there. They've stretched him out, and he's scheduled to make one more turn in the rotation for the Herd. And by then, the 10-day allotment will elapse, and then it's up to the Blue Jays to decide what they want to do moving forward in the rotation.
Meanwhile, as far as your Bisons are concerned, they're a first-place squad. We saw them last year. They were atop the division, or at the very least competitive the entire time. They received a question via Bluebird Banter in SB Nation, just wondering about winning at the lower levels in Dunedin and Lansing, the half system, trying to make the playoffs. But for you, and for those Bisons, how important is it to win?
Well, it's kind of a double-edged sword, because usually if you're a winning ball club, that means you've got guys that are producing at high levels. And then if they are producing at high levels, such as Kevin Pillar or Anthony Ghost, who turned the corner after his most recent promotion, they both deserved promotions and then found them. So you love to win. It's a good atmosphere in the clubhouse. Spirits are a lot better when you have guys performing at high levels. But they also get a little bit antsy, because if you're performing at a high level, you're hoping that the next time the phone rings, it's involved with the Major League club and you're getting a promotion and a pay raise on the 15th and the 30th of every month. If that doesn't come, though, you have to deal with the season in three different phases. One always rolls around and it's looming, and that's, of course, the June 1st out deadline that a lot of players have written into their contracts, and some will take it. The other part of the season that you have to deal with is the trade deadline, where guys can come and go from both of a AAA perspective, but also a Major League perspective. If a guy gets traded at the big league level, maybe that opens up an opportunity at the minor league level. And then the third phase is September, when most AAA clubs are making a push either for a pennant or for an opportunity to clinch a playoff spot in some capacity. You've got September promotions rolling around, and you may spend the last week of your season without the best players, and then you're trying to figure it out. So those are really the three caveats of how you construct a AAA season, factoring in then your winning percentage and how you're going about things. It's all important, and it's great for the fan base. And in Buffalo, they put an emphasis on winning. And I think the last couple of years, the Blue Jays have placed more emphasis on winning and making sure the balance of the ball club is better because of their situation in Buffalo, and knowing the fact that the Bisons want to be a competitive ball club for their baseball fans, and the Blue Jays have recognized that. So it makes living with the baseball team like we do, Jesse, easier when the winning percentage is higher, but it also is a little bit tougher, when you have to deal with constant roster moves. So I guess that's kind of it in a very long-winded way to explain it.
Well, and speaking of that roster movement, we're speaking with Ben Wagner in AAA Buffalo. Ricardo Nanita had been a Bison, and now there he is. He's been borrowed. He's going to play in the Mexican League. He's going to play for the Tigers of Quintana Roo. In the Mexican League, the transaction is something that I was reading about. I had been unfamiliar with it before. Those are your defending Mexican League champions that Nanita joins their roster. And tell me about this from your perspective.
Well, this is an interesting point you bring up, because you can loan players to the Mexican League, Or, for example, this is a case, too, that sometimes happens at AAA. If you've got prolific hitters or pitchers, that may be inviting to teams on the Pacific Rim. The new rules in Korea allow for more American players to come across. And the Japanese League for years has been selecting, talent that starts the season, produces, and think then they can bring them into Japanese baseball and try to harness some of that mid-season acquisitions from American schedule point, get them ready for the Japanese Baseball League. Those are moves that can happen at any moment. And those contracts then get sold. So those guys are done and out of the organization, usually granted a release, and then the player signs for some big bucks and then hops the next flight over to Japan. I don't think it's in Tanaka status, where you can rent an entire 747 and fly, a couple of buddies and your wife and your dog over. I think, the dollar figures aren't anything that exorbitant. But what you've got, though, is that is always looming. And this is the time of year, too, the Japanese scouts and Korean baseball scouts, whether they're coming over from those countries or just represented by American scouts as well on behalf of those clubs. This is a time of the year where you can see that. So that's another just little wrinkle. It doesn't happen as frequently as what major league moves always do, but at least from a Mexican League perspective, is there's a need in the Blue Jays organization. Ricardo can be summoned back. But for Ricardo, he wants to play more, and he needs to play more. He's still a young guy, and he feels that he's in the best shape of his life and has the greatest potential right now, and he needs to have more reps. But there's a log jam with outfielders, some veteran guys in Buffalo, and also a pretty good crop in Double-A as well. So this was the best move for him personally, and the Blue Jays recognized that, so they granted him the opportunity.
The question of the week this week is, as a baseball fan, in addition to being an observer and broadcaster, are there any specific skills or aspects of players on your team that you simply enjoy watching?
Wow. That is, you know what, I really enjoyed talking with Chris Getz when he was with our club about feeling out a pitcher and what he observes when he's on the base pads. There's little nuances that I really enjoy talking to guys about, because every time you ask the question, you get different insight. If you're a speed merchant and you possess world-class speed, and we're in Louisville right now, and nobody possesses right now more speed than Billy Hamilton in the Cincinnati system, and he did 75 stolen bases here in Louisville last year. So, Billy Hamilton just thinks about going and he goes. There's not much to it. But Chris Getz is a student of the game, and he studies pitchers. He studies the moves, and he's working with the stopwatch, and he's checking in with base coaches. Those are some of the things that I really like to really pry in and try to get a sense of what makes up a player, and also a successful player when he's doing these things. Because you may be in a horrible batting slump, but the speed is something you just can't teach. You're possessed with it, and now it's up to that person to utilize it. Or maybe it's just the mechanics. In terms of Bobby Korecki, he picked up his cutter, which led to 26 consecutive scoreless innings this season, something that he developed just playing catch with Mickey Story last year. Those are the kind of things that I really like to dive in and find out how it develops. What are the nuances? What are the triggers for that individual, other than just saying, well, I just go out there and I try to execute my pitches? There has to be reason. There has to be those in-depth discussions with either a member in the bullpen, a pitching coach along the lines, with what he maybe picks up when he's out on the mound in game competition, then works on in bullpens, or maybe something that a hitting coach like Richie Hebner is going to see timing-wise with a hitter at the plate. Those are really the things, the minutia of what makes up a player that I really like delving into.
I love it. Ben Wagner, voice of the Buffalo Bisons. Right now, correct me if I'm wrong, you've just finished off day one. You're into day 2 of an 8-game road trip.
You're correct, in beautiful Louisville, Kentucky.
Well, best of luck. Hope everything goes well, and we'll check again in with you next week.
Can't wait, Jesse. Thanks again.
Awesome, Ben. Thank you. Now, let's move down the ladder from AAA Buffalo to join in with my co-broadcaster, my broadcast colleague with the Midwest League Single-A, Lansing Lugnuts, Trey Wilson. How are you?
Hi, Jesse. Long time no see.
Trey and I are both in Fort Wayne, Indiana, speaking about Lansing Lugnuts baseball. Now, we have partnered with Bluebird Banter this year, and I love every single Friday. Folks post their questions about everything that's going on. And one of the questions that came up this week, Trey, was, all right, so Lansing's in the league with 2 half seasons for playoff qualifications. Is there any sense of excitement from players to try to qualify in the first half when the better guys know that they want to be a level above by the end of the season?
Well, I mean, these guys are competitors. They want to play to win every game, obviously. If there's a chance for them to clinch a playoff spot, they want to do that, and they want to do it as soon as possible. There haven't been a lot of rumblings around the team about hearing the word playoffs. I mean, it is May, after all. But there was, I mean, you look back a little over a week ago, the first time that the Lugnuts went over 500 since opening day, and there was some excitement around that. Some guys were excited to see, that the win total be higher than the loss total for the first time in a long time, hovering around 500 for most of the year. They got back over 500 again 2 days ago, right back to 500 now after losing last night. So they want to climb up. They want to be up around the top of the standings. Of course, everybody that's in this business, they want to win for the most part. There have been very few guys that I've ever heard that are just like, let's get this season over with and get on to the next level. They want to win at whatever level they're at.
We have a couple of questions sent in via Twitter from Charlie Kasky wondering about injuries. Matt Dean and Tom Robson.
Well, Matt Dean is it's a mild oblique strain. I think we expect to see him back soon. I think any day now, we should see Matt Dean getting activated. I haven't asked. You might know more on Matt Dean right now than I do, but it's just waiting. It's one of those injuries that you have to just wait out. There's nothing that you can do. You can't really play through it because you're not going to be able to produce very much. Do you know anything on that?
Nope. All we've heard is that Matt keeps on getting better and better, and he's getting closer and closer. So nothing serious for anybody who's worrying about anything about it.
Yeah, I don't think that there's anything. I think Matt's still doing some work and getting work in when he can. He's been getting more involved over the last few days, so I don't think it will be too much longer before we see him getting activated off the disabled list and coming back. Tom Robson, though, we are completely in the dark on Tom. We have no idea what's going on or what has happened to him from an injury standpoint. We know that they didn't know at first. They had to get him checked out, so it wasn't anything obvious and apparent right from the get-go. But they keep us in the dark. Toronto keeps these things very close to the vest, and everybody who follows this organization knows it well. And it's not even like me and you are trying to hide this because we have to, which there are times when we have to do that, but this is one of those things that we just have not been told. Both of us have asked around a little bit, but nobody told us anything.
The things that we do know, though, one thing in particular, the Lugnuts in the month of May have shown off the power, and the offense has come alive. Is there anything that you credit that to, and who has really been the keys to it?
Well, one of the things is playing a few games down in Bowling Green. Ballpark gives up home runs at a pretty incredible rate, at least from what we saw. Now, none of those were cheap home runs, and I think that you would agree on that. But the home run rates, yes, they're definitely up. The weather is certainly playing a part in that. It's warmer. Getting into the groove of the season is helping. We're a month and a half in now. Guys are seeing the ball better. And playing in Bowling Green, getting away from Cooley Law School Stadium in Lansing, because that stadium just eats up home run balls and spits them back out as fly ball outs. So, or maybe doubles. If you find the right spot in the field, maybe a triple, but we haven't even seen many of those. I think a lot of balls that would be home runs elsewhere have been doubles at home for Lansing, and I think that's a big part of it. There were a lot of home games in the first month of the season, and spending a little more time on the road now, we've seen the power coming back. But look at guys like DJ Davis. He's leading the team with home runs. Obviously, he's got the stroke to hit some long home runs, and Mitch Ney is starting to find a groove here and there. His overall hit production is down, but he's had a couple of home runs in the since the month of May started. Those are two guys that you can look at.
We're speaking with Trey Wilson, who joins me for Lansing Lugnuts broadcasts all year. You can find the Lugnuts at LansingLugnuts.com. Our final question about baseball before we get to the question of the week. All right, so with the starting pitching for the Lugnuts, you know about the injuries. Also, Jeremy Gaborisky has been more than serviceable. He's been good. Dermody stepped up and pitched well. And very recently, joining them and joining Chase DeYoung as an arm that the Lugnuts can count upon. 4 more scoreless innings yesterday for Shane Dawson. What has made Shane so effective?
I think the first time out when we saw Dawson at Dayton, he wasn't quite settled in yet. He just pretty much come off the plane and was asked to pitch in that series, and he had a bunch of walks. He had 5 walks in that game. Oh, now he's back to throwing strikes. He's found a bit more of a routine. You look at the last 9 innings thrown for Dawson this past the piggyback appearance last night and going back to his most recent start, just 5 hits given up in those 9 innings, no earned runs. He's had only 2 walks in the last 9 innings and 7 strikeouts, and those are over the combined last 2 appearances for Dawson. He's in his routine. It's what you expect to see out of him. He was that way for most of last year. He was a little hit or miss at times, and he got up to Vancouver, and he was just on fire to start his time up there, and then he ended up getting a little injury, so he sat out the rest of the season. But I think that there's nothing surprising about it. There's nothing that I think is different other than he's just settling in. He was down and extended. It's a much different situation coming in and pitching in a game in front of fans with more pressure than throwing some live BP or anything, simulated games that you would have down in extended spring training.
And lastly with Trey Wilson, our question of the week. What are the aspects or possibly specific skills that you really enjoy the most with this year's Lugnut squad?
I love watching Jason Lublabegian and to an extent as well Justin Atkinson, but for the most part Jason Lublabegian playing defense. He has made some plays, and you can harp on this just as much as I can. You've seen them all too, that you kind of just shake your head and say, how did he do that? He has tremendous range up the middle at whichever side of the infield he's on, whether he's at second base or over a shortstop. He has a very strong arm, and he's made some plays that I think you would not expect him to make sometimes. You wouldn't expect really anybody to make. And then think back a few games ago, he had a play at second base, a line drive coming over his head. He leaped into the air and just caught it right out of the air. And, if he was playing basketball, he probably would have been able to hang his elbow in the rim with the jump that he had to get that ball. I asked him after that game, I said, did you know you could jump that high? I didn't think you could. And he said, I had no idea. I have no idea how I got to that ball. He has an incredible instinct and great timing and a great rhythm and feel for the game defensively. And that's been a huge help for this Lugnuts team. The defense hasn't been bad all year, but it's been pretty average. That there have been balls booted around, and even Jason Lublabegian has been charged with a few errors here and there. Everybody's going to. But the defensive show that he has put on, it is a show when he is on his best. It's quite fun to watch.
Trey Wilson with the Lansing Lugnuts, thank you very much for joining us this week.
All right, thank you, Jesse. See you in a bit.
You can find Trey on Twitter at TreyWilson757, TreyWilson 757. The Lugnuts are at LansingLugnuts.com. And now let's go right off the ladder from Single A Lansing to Class A Advanced Dunedin and join in with Al Hernandez with the DJs. Al, how are you?
I'm great, Jesse. How are you doing?
Doing very well. Well, let's talk about Dunedin. Yesterday, got off to a nice, comfortable lead. Had to hang on a little bit by the end. But I've noticed it's the power bats that are out right now complementing your pitching.
Home runs is not something that we've seen too much this year from this Dunedin lineup. Coming into play just a few days ago, it was a few players tied with 4 to lead the team, Dwight Smith Jr. and Emilio Guerrero, but now it seems that Dalton Pompey has all of a sudden turned into a real power threat, 2 home runs in consecutive games. He now leads the team with 5. Doubles have been coming all of a sudden all the time now. This team that always relied on its speed, aggressive base running, singles, moving the runners over. Derek Chung has been hitting a lot of doubles recently. And I don't know what happened. All of a sudden, this team that went from manufacturing runs with the speed and relying on pitching is just hitting the ball out of the ballpark or banging it off the wall all the time. But I'll take it either way.
With Dalton Pompey last year with Lansing, had virtually 0 home runs all year. And then suddenly they came. Hit a grand slam July the 24th, hit another home run July 29th, and then he decided to take a break. And then August 26th, he hit 2. August 28th, he hit another. September the 1st, he hit a 6th, then he finished the season with 6 home runs. So I don't know what it is. Maybe it's simply the light bulb that flicks on, and suddenly he becomes one of the best power threats you've seen.
I know that he has exhibited more power from the right side of the plate than from the left side of the plate. He hit those 2 home runs, both hitting right-handed. 4 of his 5 homers have come this season right-handed. And we've discussed how usually natural righties, our switch hitters, exhibit more power from the right side. After a discussion with Dalton, he agreed that he tends to hit for more power from the right side and more average from the left. My best guess, I don't know what the situation was last year, but my best guess is that leading up into the back-to-back games with home runs is that he had gotten a few extra at-bats from the right side of the plate, must have gotten locked in, and then continued to hit from that side and show off that power with a couple of line drives that snuck over that tall left field fence.
Hey, works for me. And please, nobody pinch Derek Chung. Nobody wake him up, because every single game he's guaranteed for 2 hits right now.
Derek Chung all of a sudden has just flipped the switch after a rocky April where he was up and down, and he got off to what seemed like a hot start and then went through a stretch where he was 3 for 30 now, is riding an extended hit streak. He seems to just be mashing the ball every time he steps up, and if he doesn't get a hit, he draws a walk over his last 8 games, which he's hitting 14 for 26. He's also drawn 6 walks. So he's just getting on base every way possible to go along with his well above average defense that we've grown accustomed to behind the plate.
This is Al Hernandez with the Dunedin Blue Jays, who, by my reckoning, and Al, you can correct me if this is untrue, they have the best winning percentage in the entire country.
That is correct. Affiliated baseball all the way up to who the affiliates are with, the major league teams. This team is 33-13, 20 games over 500. I don't know if I'm part of a team that's been this successful so early in the season.
So how does that affect matters? Do you go to bed each night saying, I cannot wait for the next game?
I go to bed thinking that despite, or no matter if my team is winning or losing, the fact that my team is winning, I can't even go to bed. I'm so hyped up every night. I get home, another win. When they lose, it's just such a strange feeling. Coming from a guy that was raised on losing baseball in the Chicago area, you'd think I would have become accustomed to it, but now that we've been winning so much with these DJs, when we lose once a week, I'm heartbroken. Only 13 times have we ended up in that loss column, and it's still a heartbreaker every time. I just hope that they keep winning all season, because I've grown accustomed to a certain kind of lifestyle, and I cannot go back.
Well, I'm looking at the Dunedin website right now, and I see the ad saying get free movie tickets if the Jays win on Saturdays. You're virtually guaranteed free movie tickets every Saturday.
Oh, I actually haven't cashed in on those yet. I have them all building up in my desk. I keep making sure to collect them when we win because, well, we keep winning on Saturdays 5 times this season. But I haven't cashed them in yet. They don't expire for a while. I'm thinking about maybe taking a whole busload of friends for a free movie one day.
Hey, sounds good to me. All right, let me ask you about a player who began the season with the Lansing Lugnuts. I spoke with him coming out of spring training. He said that he had a strong resolve. He was ready to move up. He gave up virtually nothing in Lansing. And then Kendall Graveman joined Dunedin. It was a little bit rough for him in his very first inning in his DJ's debut. And since then, 3 consecutive victories. So how's Kendall looking to you?
Graveman looks better every time out. Yesterday, another solid start on the mound. Unfortunately, he did make one mistake before he was pulled. He surrendered a home run to Adam Brett Walker. No shame in that. 27 home runs last year, the Midwest Player of the League. That was already his 8th home run this year. So he went 5 2/3, ends up officially being on the hook for 4 runs, 3 earned, but it felt like he gave up less than that, especially with the 7-1 cushion he had before giving up those runs in the 6th inning. You understand that he's just coming over the plate. Kendall Graveman is just a guy that I feel like everything I'm about to say you already know, but I guess I should say it for the fans because he's just so great. He pounds the zone low with that sinker. He stays composed on the mound. He seems wise beyond his years. A guy that when I spoke with him about a week ago, I said, you tend to have given up runs early so far in each of your starts here in Brevard County, or rather in Dunedin. How do you brush that off and continue? And he must have had the most professional response I've ever heard from one of our pitchers that had a semi-negative question. And he just said it honestly. He said, I'm a sinker ball pitcher. I pitch to contact. Sometimes they find holes. That happens. I'm used to it. And sometimes my sinker flattens out and it gets hit a long way. So what? I'm a pitcher. It's my job to go out there and keep battling. And I just love that mentality from this college graduate. I think that's a big part of it. He was able to go to college all 4 years, and really I think that helps the development of a lot of these young pitchers.
Let me ask you a question that was posed via Bluebird Banter by a commenter who was simply wondering, with the players and wanting to win, you play in the half system in the Florida State League. Some of your very best players, they have the opportunity to get called up this season with Dunedin. So how important is it to them that the DJs make the playoffs?
I think it's, even though they may not participate in the playoffs, it's a big part for them to at least win that division title. We see them out there scrapping and battling every day. All of them seem to be in such a good mood, and all of them keep talking about how they don't want to focus on the standings. But you know what? We get asked pretty often how close everyone is behind them, who won, who lost in the standings. So they obviously care. And even if they don't get to partake in the postseason, that will go on later, obviously, after they are promoted, if they do get promoted, I think it's a big source of pride and accomplishment for them to still be able to say, I was on that first half championship team, to have taken that. And there's some pretty darn good teams in the FSL North, so I think it's a pretty prideful factor to be able to say that I took down the Lakeland Flying Tigers or the Tampa Yankees that all have a lot of highly touted prospects.
This is Al Hernandez with the Dunedin Blue Jays in the Florida State League, Class A Advanced. And the Toronto Blue Jays, that's where headquarters are in America, located in Dunedin. And so let me ask you, the Toronto Blue Jays are playing well right now. You can make an argument playing as well as any team in the majors. And so what have you noticed here in Dunedin? What have you seen the impact upon the Toronto Blue Jays' success?
Well, I know that everybody's walking with an extra bounce in their step. No one seems to be in a bad mood recently, whether that's because of the Dunedin Blue Jays or the Toronto Blue Jays. I can't tell you, because everyone here is just in such a good mood. It's so enjoyable whenever we have a roving hitting coach or a roving catching instructor, say Sal Fastano, in town. Everybody just has a big grin on their face, and I love it. I can't get enough of it, and being part of this winning organization is just a dream come true.
That's fantastic. Let me ask you, Al, our question of the week. Any players' skills, talents, skill sets? For Ben Wagner, it was nuances. Maybe it's an ability. The aspects of baseball that you enjoy watching the most as a fan and an observer of the DJ.
Well, let me start by saying that this may be the greatest question you've ever posed to me, Jesse, because I love baseball more than I love oxygen. I live it, I breathe it, I sleep it, I eat it, I everything it. I can't get enough of it. And it's because of the fact that it's a game with so many nuances. It's so special. It's so different. There's so many little things when it comes from just the chalk down the line to the way you wear your batting gloves. Everything is so different about baseball as opposed to other sports. So when you try to pick out what's your favorite little nuance about players that you watch every day, it's really splitting hairs. You look at things that are more obvious, like the defense played by Dalton Pompey in center field, which we all know is top-notch, or that big curveball coming out of Daniel Norris's left hand. But I'll tell you, something that I can't get enough of is Derek Chung's throwing arm from behind the plate. You'd maybe think that since he's not a natural catcher, he did start as an infielder in professional baseball before being put behind home plate, he wouldn't excel at defense as a catcher, but I'll tell you, it's anything but that. He's got a cannon. He's always attempting pickoffs at first base, nearly catching guys, and he throws out base runners at such a high clip. I can't believe anyone even dares to go on him. Just 2 days ago, we saw a dirt ball where a miracle runner got a great read on it, took off before the ball even reached home plate, and Derek Chung made a great block, popped up on a play that I think everyone stopped watching, expecting the runner would slide into second, and threw a bullet down to second base on a bang-bang play that some may say that the umpire got wrong calling the runner safe. And it's just little things like that. Derek Chung's throwing arm that I can't get enough of. And the second thing I'll say is Daniel Norris. We all know he made his name throwing 95-mile-per-hour fastballs, and I just mentioned that big hook but it's his changeup this year that's turned him into a whole nother pitcher, that's elevated him another level, and I think has led to so much success and impressed so many people this season. That changeup, he's able to basically put it wherever he wants, whenever he wants, and he throws it to begin at bats. He throws it in 3-0 counts. He throws it in 2-1 counts. He throws it in 0-2 counts. He throws it whenever he wants, and he's able to locate it as good, if not better, than his other two pitches. And that changeup is my favorite pitch to watch, and I just love it because these hitters are always revving up for that big fastball, and here comes this pitch about 10 miles per hour, slower than it, but with the same action and the same movement, and I love watching the hitters' faces.
Al Hernandez with the Dunedin Blue Jays. Al, thank you very much for joining us this week, and best of luck. We'll check in with you next Friday.
Thank you so much, Jesse. It was a pleasure as always.
Excellent. Well, from Al, let's go up the ladder. We just heard about Dalton Pompey, Daniel Norris, other players who, if they continue like they're continuing, hey, they're going to have that opportunity in Double-A with the New Hampshire Fisher Cats. And here is the voice of the New Hampshire Fisher Cats, Tom Gauthier. Tom, how are you?
Hey, good, Jesse. How are you today?
Doing very well. Well, with your Fisher Cats as of late, now when we had spoken with Bob Lippman, there was a tough time. The Fisher Cats trying to break things out of that, and, with the power coming along, what have you seen in recent days from your Cats?
Well, it's we can officially say that we have broken out of the slump. We ended the 11-game losing streak yesterday. When Bob talked to you, it was 4 or 5 games in. We had started losing a week ago Sunday, and then by the time Bob talked to you on Friday, it was 5 games. Went through the weekend, we lost every game. Went through a 5-game series in Reading and didn't win until yesterday, even though we had leads in every single game. It's been a combination of things. Nothing has been clicking at the right time with one thing fires and the other thing misfires, and then the bullpen comes out and throws well, but we don't get any hits. So it's been kind of a lot of misfiring, and then as much as you hate to blame luck, we've had a lot of bad luck a couple of times over the course of the last week, particularly Tuesday night, ground ball to second, double play should end the game, and instead takes a bad hop in the infield, almost knocks John Birdie's head off. We don't get anybody out. They score the tying run, and they win it in the 8th. So it's been kind of an accumulation of things, bad luck, bad timely hitting at times, bad pitching at times, and it all kind of just manifested itself until yesterday when you got good starting pitching, good relief work, and then a home run by Ryan Schimpf. And that little formula right there, we've won a lot of games with that formula the last couple of years, and that's what got us on the right track yesterday.
Ryan Schimpf, I think I saw, was it number 39, his home runs with New Hampshire?
Yeah, 39 home runs with the Fisher Cats. He's up to 188 games. I think it is 189 games now for Schimpf in his Fisher Cats career. 187 actually. So, he's I don't know if it's major league power, but it's probably as close as we have to anybody on this team with major league power right now. A lot of the home runs have come at home, but he's actually started to hit a few more against lefties. He's an even split this year, 4-4, lefties and righties. And what makes him so dangerous is, the batting average may not be there. It wasn't as high last year as he probably would have wanted it to be, but his on-base percentage was still over 300 despite a 203 average because he's such a patient hitter. He very rarely chases when ahead outside of the strike zone, has a very good eye, and he'll very gladly let you give him a walk as opposed to get a hit. He actually set a franchise record with walks last year, and with a guy like that, when he has good patience and then he has the pop that he does, he's a very tough guy to pitch to.
I love the fact Ryan Schimpf and I are basically about the same height.
Yeah, I think all three of us are, Jesse. He probably has us by about several inches in the biceps and the forearms, and his hands are probably bigger than both of ours combined. And he's about 75 times stronger than either one of us. But other than that, if you look at the height, I have a goatee just like he does. I mean, other than that, we're carbon copy of each other.
No difference. Couldn't pick him out of the lineup. Oh, Ryan,
exactly.
What I'd always heard, a rule of thumb of Double-A was if you can play in Double-A, you'll get your shot at the major leagues. And who knows how long that shot will last. But it's always seen as the Double-A is really the line that gets drawn. And you get to see who can really cut the mustard. And then Triple-A becomes a little bit of a waiting room when guys will get that opportunity when the door suddenly swings open. But it's fun for me to see Schimpf excelling, Michael Krause continuing to play well after it took a little bit for the light bulb to come on. And so you have those guys complemented by, let's say, Mike McDade. That's a team that can hit for power, And that's a team of professionals as well.
Yeah, and it's starting to kind of come into its own in that regard too. The power's been okay. I don't think that we've hit an abundance of home run. I'd have to look to see where we are in terms of the league statistics. We just haven't hit enough, period, to really be able to take advantage of a lot of that. Krause has hit a lot better of late. He's actually on the DL right now. He took a nasty stumble trying to slide in the third on last Saturday night. Went in, his knee caught, he rolled and landed on his left wrist a little awkwardly. Actually went to the team doctor today. Doesn't think it's too serious, but I haven't had a chance to talk with him to see what the doc said today. But it's a team that has it's a good combination of everything. We have a little bit of power. A guy like Kenny Wilson could hit 10 home runs, but he can also hit 9 or 10 triples just as easily. We have guys like John Birdie that will hit okay. They'll hit 275, 280, but they'll get on base a ton. And then when they get on base, Burns, Wilson, Birdie, they can steal bases like crazy. And then you have the guys like Jacobo and Mike McDade. You have Krause, who has a little bit of power in him. You have those guys that can actually get on base and drive those guys home. So it's a well-balanced offense. It's just an offense that hasn't had everybody clicking at the same time, which is certainly tough to do, but it's not even close to where, you have 2 or 3 guys clicking. That'd be a lot for us at times now.
Is Mike McDade the best-dressed player on the team?
That's a good question. I think you'd have a lot of guys that would probably be in the same category. I think McDade's actually toned it down a little bit from what he did a couple of years ago. I remember 2012, he was probably the best-dressed guy on the team, but I think now he's maybe a little more casual. He's not making 40-man money anymore, so maybe he's had to tone down the clothes a little bit. But he doesn't stand out anymore like he did a few years ago. But he still has the glasses that he wears at the plate and then glasses that he has when he's off the field, so that gives him that higher educated, more of a not a yuppie. I can't think of what the word is now. A lot of folks are in Brooklyn. You have them kind of those
hipster.
Modernized people, if you will. A hipster. There you go. He's more got that hipster look now.
Mike McDade from 2009 with the Lugnuts, before 40-man roster, he had the fedora, he had the vest, he had the handkerchief sticking out of the corner of the pocket, and it was accessorized perfectly in color with everything else in the ensemble. And so
he's not doing that anymore, and
okay.
He's dressing a little more conservatively. But I do remember he did a little bit of that in 2012 as well.
All right, we have questions sent in from Bluebird Banter. We partnered up with them via SB Nation. So let's see. Question for you. With regard to Deck McGuire, simply with Deck, have there been any introductions to any new pitches that he's using? Has he added anything into his arsenal, or has he simply tuned up the stuff that he has?
I think he hasn't added anything new, and he really hasn't changed his style. He's an aggressive guy. He pitches quick. We actually talked about him with this the other day. We asked him in our interview with him yesterday, have you changed your style at all from what he did in 2012? I just think it's a matter of better execution. It's a matter of maturing as a pitcher. You got to remember, when he came up here in 2012, he had very little Double-A experience, and he was only a second-year pro. I mean, he was drafted in 2010, didn't pitch until 2011, and only had a handful of starts in Double-A, and I don't think he went more than 5 or 6 in one of those outings at the end of the 2011 season. So when it came to pitching in the pros, he was still very young, and he only had really the one breakout season at Georgia Tech. So I think over time he's just gotten more innings into his body. He's gotten more innings into the arm. He's learned how to pitch a little bit better, and he's been our most consistent guy probably since day one. He had one tough outing in the beginning of the season where he gave up 10 hits in Reading, but other than that, he's really done a good job in the last 2 games, been able to mix it up. And he mentioned working with A.J. Hernandez. They've worked together for a long time now, and I think Deck really appreciates the job that Hernandez does behind the plate when it comes to calling a game. That's been a big product of what he does. But, in terms of new pitches, there's nothing new there. In fact, I think last year, he relied on a cutter a lot. And I talked with Casey Lawrence and some of the guys charting during his last start at home, and they said, no, we don't think it's cutter. We just think it's a fastball that's moving a little bit. So I think it's just he's using just all the stuff that he has, a 4-seamer, maybe a 2-seamer occasionally, but the curveball, the slider, and the changeup, and just been much better locating. He's been getting in on guys a little bit more. It's just been a much better, much more efficient Deck McGuire.
We're speaking with Tom Gauthier with the Double-A New Hampshire Fisher Cats on Around the Nest. He mentioned how McGuire was relatively young to pitching. Another youngster, I don't understand if people know how young he is. Aaron Sanchez is not that old, and there are high expectations upon him. He's been virtually unhittable. League's batting .202 against him. There's concern about his walks. Is the walks a simple answer? Is it something very complex with regard to his command?
I don't know how complex it is, but it's a matter of repeating the delivery. It's a matter of his biggest problem, and I think it was. We'll see it again tomorrow, or we'll see him face the same team that he had the most problems against, the Portland Sea Dogs, who just happen to lead the league in just about every offensive category, with multiple guys at the top of the charts in the offensive categories. When he faced them in Portland back on May 9th, he went 2 innings, threw 19 pitches, mowed them all down out of the windup. Third inning, a guy got on. He had to work out of the stretch, and that's when everything really went south. And I think that's really kind of been the biggest problem for him is when he's been pitching out of the stretch, he hasn't been as effective. His command hasn't been as good. But we've seen it out of the windup, too. It's just a matter of controlling the fastball, repeating everything. Jim Sykowski's talked about him slowing the game down and really focusing on one pitch. Guys like we had last year, Marcus Walden, who's now in the A's system, part of the reason they were so good is that they can literally pitch one pitch at a time. As cliche as that sounds, he never thought about the next pitch coming up. And I think as a pitcher, when you recognize that you're racing ahead, and Deck McGuire says, I've overanalyzed things, I've thought about pitches in advance. When you start to think of a sequence that you want to throw instead of executing one pitch, you get into trouble. So I think it's all of those things coming together for Sanchez and just being able to repeat that delivery first and foremost, take it one pitch at a time because, you know, the other thing for him is he probably has a little bit of a confidence issue. His stuff is so good. He's got such a good curveball. He throws 97 with sink. Guys can't hit that at any level. And if you keep that ball down, you're going to see what he's done. He's got 2.5 grounders to every fly ball out. He may not have 100 strikeouts in 100 innings, but he's going to have 200 ground balls in that time. And that's what's going to make a guy like that so good when he really trusts his stuff and the mechanics come together. That's when you'll see him take off. And right now it's still a work in progress.
Another player who's been struggling this year, who something was expected of, I see that Andy Burns' walks are up in May compared to in April. His strikeouts are down. Is there something to the fact that Andy simply is still batting around 212?
Yeah, you know, that's a good question. I've been thinking about that a lot because he hasn't hit for a ton of power either. Last year he had, some 50-odd extra base hits between Dunedin and New Hampshire. He came up here, had a slow start coming up here, had a slow start in April last year with Dunedin as well. So the slow start wasn't uncommon, but, you know, he just hasn't really found that really strong groove. I mean, last year, he had 34 doubles, 7 triples, 15 homers. He drove in 85, and then he stole 33 bases. He's getting on base a little bit more now, so I think that's helping him start to hit some balls hard, and it's starting to help him have some better at-bats. But he is a pretty free-swinging guy, too. I know there are a lot of games where he's out after the first pitch, and all of a sudden he's down in the count 0-2, and he's chasing up out of the zone particularly. In fact, he was I noticed it in Reading a lot that he was almost everything was up and away, hit a lot of foul balls down the right field line. When the ball's up and away, that tends to be what happens is that the ball shoots off to the right side when you're a right-handed hitter. So he's been doing a lot of that. I think he's still chasing a little too much, but as you said, the walks are starting to come up. The strikeouts are going down from April, which indicates that he's getting more comfortable, that he's starting to see the ball better. And I would expect that the extra base hits would start to come on anytime soon. In fact, in Reading, had a couple of extra base hits, but he hit some really loud outs, particularly in the doubleheader that we had on Monday, part of a really frustrating night on Tuesday as well, where we hit so many balls hard, and they either made a great defensive play or they were right at somebody. And obviously, we all know when you watch 140 games, you see plenty of that, and those don't show up in the box scores as anything but an 0 for 1 or an 0 for 2. So they really hurt the batting average, but they don't necessarily tell the whole story.
And finally, with Tom Gauthier, stepping aside from the baseball players and asking about specifics, although I guess there might be specific answers at hand, your favorite thing as a fan of the game, as an observer of the game, favorite skills to watch, favorite abilities, or maybe it's nuances of the players with your team this year?
You know, I think first and foremost, it's probably Ryan Schimpf because he's such a fun guy to watch. When he gets into a 3-1 count, and it's happened a couple of times this year that I can remember, once home and I think once on the road, 3-1 count, and you just say, don't give him a fastball. Just don't give him, there's a fastball, and it's hit 400 feet. So he's been fun to watch. He had a couple of foul balls in the last homestand that were easily 40, 50 feet beyond the right field wall. And it's a short wall, keep in mind, but the ball's just, I mean, he had one ball that was still going up when it hit the wall in the right field, and the umpire, you know, had no idea if it was fair or foul because he hit the ball so high, probably twice as high as the foul pole goes up in right field. So I think I like watching that a lot. And I do like watching ground balls. Guys that can get a lot of ground balls. There's the quote in Bull Durham that, get some ground balls. Strikeouts are fascist, and, ground balls are more democratic. I think that's the quote, but it's something along those lines. Watching guys get ground balls is a lot of fun. The game moves by a lot quicker. They don't throw as many pitches. Scott Copeland gets a lot of grounders. Casey Lawrence, when he's throwing well, gets a lot of grounders. And then maybe the guy that's the most fun to watch because he can strike you out at 97, or he can make you break a bat and hit a weak one to second base. And that's Sanchez, like we talked about a minute ago. When those guys are on and they're getting a lot of ground balls, that's personally my favorite part of the game to watch. It's seeing a good starting pitcher or even a reliever, but starters, you see it over the course of 6 or 7 innings when they're getting a lot of ground ball outs. It's got to be so frustrating for a hitter because you just can't get that ball up into the air despite how good it looks coming into the strike zone.
You can find Tom Gauthier on Twitter, TomGauthier21. Tom, the voice of the New Hampshire Fisher Cats. Thank you very much for joining us. Best of luck. Until next Friday.
Sounds good, Jesse. We'll talk to you then.
Beautiful. Well, we still have some minutes left in the show. This is Around the Nest. I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler, Ben Wagner in AAA Buffalo, Tom Gauthier with AA New Hampshire, Al Hernandez in A Advanced Dunedin, and Trey Wilson with Single A Lansing. Now, here's a chance for a quick interview. It was rapid-fire questions. I had the chance to speak with DJ Davis, the Lansing Lugnuts center fielder, not too long ago, and simply, here comes a rapid-fire Q&A with DJ Davis.
This is Jesse Goldberg-Strassler, joined by DJ Davis, Lansing Lugnuts outfielder. DJ, first things first, what age did you start playing baseball?
Probably when I was like 4.
When did you start moving out to center field?
Around about 10th grade.
What other positions have you tried playing?
I played left. That's about it.
What's the difference between left field and center field?
Center field got a couple more ground, and left field, I say, like, with left is the ball kind of sliced, you know. Yeah.
What I hear a lot is that an outfielder, it's good to know what kind of pitch the pitcher's going to throw. A fastball, a curveball, it helps you out. Is that so? Do you want to know what pitch the pitcher's throwing?
Yeah, that'll help you out a lot. It's like, is the ball going to be hit well, or if it's not, that's pretty good.
What is the best team you've ever played on?
Blue Jays.
Really? Yeah. Who's the toughest pitcher you've ever faced?
Chapman. I'd say Chapman.
Okay, let's talk about this Aroldis Chapman at bat, because we know it's coming, and you're the leadoff batter, so everybody's watching you. Here comes that first pitch up and in. How was that?
It kind of shook me up a little bit. You know, I didn't think he was going to come at me like that. I don't think he tried to, so I got back in and looking for fastballs.
Any pitcher, anything like him that you've ever faced before?
No, he's one of a kind.
What is it like to face that kind of speed?
I can't explain it.
But you hung in there tough.
Yeah, you just got to get in there and just hope for the best.
Was there anybody that you talked to after the game about that?
I talked to my dad. Yeah, he was just telling me you should have just bunted. Yeah.
Your dad had that baseball experience. Wayne Davis playing in the Toronto Blue Jays organization. What have you heard about his own experience in the minors?
He just telling me, like, it's a grind, and you're going to have them ups and downs. Just keep a level head and play hard.
Where were you when you found out that the Blue Jays had drafted you?
I was back home in Wiggins. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Who was the first person you called up to tell them?
I didn't call anybody.
How many people were around you when the Blue Jays called you when you found out?
Probably about 5.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Did you know Blue Jays? Did you have any suspicions?
Kind of, sort of. It was a couple teams, but Blue Jays picked me, and it was a surprise.
What's Wiggins, Mississippi like?
It's just a small town.
What's your favorite food to eat?
On the thing it said pizza, and I like steaks and ribs, and like barbecue.
I saw it too, not just baseball, but you were a basketball player too. What were your strengths as a basketball player?
I played a little pee-wee in like backyard, but I say driving the ball to the hole.
Joined by DJ Davis of the Lansing Lugnuts. DJ, did you have any favorite baseball, basketball, sports teams growing up?
I have to say, I don't have favorite teams, but I have like favorite players, and wherever they go, I follow them.
Like who?
I say football, I follow Michael Vick, and basketball, LeBron.
So those exciting guys.
Yeah.
Was there anything a coach said to you while you were playing that's really stuck with you as something smart that you've kept on trying to follow?
Yeah, I had to say, I'm more of a coach. It's just my dad. He's like, he told me, when I get in the box, just have a BP mentality when you're up in there.
What's a BP mentality mean?
It's just like when you're in BP and you're stroking the ball good, you want to bring that to the plate. You know?
How do you spend the winter? How do you spend November, December, January?
I hang out with my family a lot, and I work out, go to Atlanta with my agency and work out a little.
Do you have any siblings?
Yeah, I have a brother and a sister.
Older or younger?
Older.
Do they play any sports?
No, they play basketball in high school. That's about it, yeah.
So with you're right now the athlete of the family. Everyone's cheering you on, it sounds like.
Yeah.
With DJ Davis of the Lansing Lugnuts, what's the best play you've ever made?
I have to say I was in 10th grade, and I think it was a regular season game. Like, I misjudged the ball, and I came in, and it was over my head, and somehow I went and got it. I don't know how. Yeah.
Something like that. You'd like to see the video of that.
Yeah.
Well, we had a video of you earlier this year. It made SportsCenter, your diving catch in Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. Take me through that play.
I think I have to say that was really, I could have caught that ball standing up. I think I could have got a better jump. It was a nice play.
All right, so those are your best defensive plays. How about at the bat? What's the biggest at bat you've ever had?
I have to say when I hit the walk-off in Lansing.
Was that your first walk-off?
Yeah, first walk-off ever.
How'd that feel?
Felt good. Pretty good.
And then your teammates all stayed chasing you.
Yeah.
And finally, is there something that, let's say as we get into July, August, you want someone who's a fan of baseball, fan of the Lugnuts, to watch with you and say, aha, he's worked on that. He's better at that than he's ever been before?
I'll say cut down on the strikeouts. Yeah.
Is there a secret to cutting down on strikeouts?
Yeah, it's just more of like be patient at the plate and see the bat hit the ball. Stop trying to pull everything, trying to do too much. Just see the bat hit the ball.
DJ Davis, thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank you.
I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler.
So that was DJ Davis. I am Jesse Goldberg-Strassler, and this has been Around the Nest. We're winding down another show this week. Just a reminder, there's the website for the show, aroundthenest.mlblogs.com. We're on the air every Friday, 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock p.m. You can catch up with the podcast. We archive it. We're going to see if we can get onto YouTube as well, and it's via iTunes. aroundthenest.mlblogs.com, and check in with Bluebird Banter on SB Nation. Send in your questions for us every single week. My thanks to Ben Wagner with the AAA Buffalo Bisons, Tom Gauthier with the AA New Hampshire Fisher Cats, Al Hernandez of the Dunedin Blue Jays Class A Advanced, and Trey Wilson with my Lansing Lugnuts in the Midwest League. I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler. Thanks for tuning in. Have a terrific weekend. We'll be back next week.